When you look at a newborn, it's easy to see just total helplessness, right? They can't walk, they can't talk, they can barely even hold up their own head. But what if I told you that packed inside that tiny, fragile body is an incredible pre-programmed toolkit designed for one thing and one thing only: survival? So let's get right into it. How does this little human, whose brain is still very much under construction, manage to get through the first critical months of life? I mean, it's one of the most amazing puzzles in all of human development. Well, the answer is they don't show up empty-handed. They arrive with a secret weapon, you could say, a completely built-in survival toolkit full of automatic, hardwired responses that help them handle their brand new and kind of overwhelming world. The official name for these tools is primitive reflexes. And these aren't things the baby decides to do. Nope, they're totally involuntary movements that come from the brain stem, the most ancient, fundamental part of the brain. It's basically nature's way of giving a baby a head start on survival, long before they can think for themselves. All right, so if we're going to open up this toolkit, what are the most critical items inside? Well, we have to start with the one that is absolutely non-negotiable for staying alive: the instinct to eat. First up is the rooting reflex. You've probably seen this in action. If you gently stroke a newborn's cheek, they'll automatically turn their head toward your finger and start making sucking motions. It's this brilliant built-in homing missile designed to help them find their food source, whether it's the breast or a bottle. And once that little homing missile finds its target, the sucking reflex takes over. This is so basic, it actually starts way back in the womb. But don't let that fool you, this is not a simple skill. Think about it. A newborn has to coordinate sucking, breathing, and swallowing all at the same time without messing it up. It's an incredible symphony of survival they have to pull off from the very first minute. Okay, so they can find food. What about staying safe? Well, the toolkit has that covered too. Next up are the built-in bodyguards, the reflexes designed to protect the baby from danger in this big, noisy new world. And the most dramatic of these bodyguards, by far, is the Moro reflex. You probably know it as the startle reflex. It's basically the baby's personal 5-alarm fire drill that goes off in response to any sudden change: a loud noise, a quick movement, even just the feeling of being dropped slightly. And watching it happen is wild. The moment they're startled, they don't even think. First, they throw their head back and fling their arms and legs out as wide as they can. Then, just as fast, they pull everything back into the center of their body. It's almost like they're giving themselves a giant protective hug. It's so sensitive that sometimes their own cry is enough to set it off. But these reflexes aren't just about surviving the here and now. Some of them are like nature's training program, a rehearsal for all the voluntary, complex skills they're going to need down the road. A perfect example is the tonic neck reflex. It looks a little funny, actually. When a baby's lying on their back and turns their head to one side, the arm on that same side straightens out while the other arm bends up by their head. It looks exactly like a tiny fencer's on-guard pose. And it's thought that this is the very first building block for hand-eye coordination. Now this one, I'm pretty sure everyone has experienced this one: the grasp reflex. You place your finger in a baby's palm and wow, their little fingers clamp down with some serious force. That's the palmar grasp. And get this, the same thing happens on their feet. That's the plantar grasp. This powerful automatic squeeze is basically laying the groundwork for the day they can voluntarily decide to pick something up. And this one is just incredible. If you hold a newborn upright with their feet just touching a flat surface, they'll start to make these little stepping or walking motions. It's called the stepping reflex. And one of the coolest theories is that it might be an old evolutionary trick that helped a brand new baby crawl up its mother's body to find the breast right after birth. So if these reflexes are so crucial, so important for survival, why do they all go away? This brings us to the next super important chapter in a baby's development: graduating from automatic pilot. You see, the disappearance of these reflexes is actually a fantastic sign. It's proof that the baby's brain and central nervous system are maturing exactly as they should. As the higher level parts of the brain come online, these automatic primitive actions get integrated and replaced by movements that are intentional and controlled. And this whole process happens on a surprisingly predictable schedule. As you can see here, the first ones to fade are usually the really dramatic ones. The stemping and Moro reflexes are typically gone by 2 months. Then around the 4-month mark, the rooting reflex disappears as feeding becomes more deliberate. By half a year, that super strong palmar grasp and the fencing pose are gone. And finally, as they get close to their first birthday, the foot reflexes fade away, clearing the path for those first real steps. And that predictable timeline is precisely why checking these reflexes is such a standard part of every pediatrician's visit. Their presence, their strength, and, just as importantly, their disappearance give doctors a fantastic window into how a baby's brain is developing. So here's a look at what they're checking for. If a reflex that should be there is absent or weak, it could signal an issue with the central nervous system. On the flip side, if a reflex sticks around way past its expiration date, it might indicate a developmental delay or even something like cerebral palsy. And here's a wild fact. If these primitive reflexes suddenly reappear in an adult, it can be a sign of damage to the frontal lobe of the brain. It just shows how fundamental they are. Now, it's really important to draw a line between these temporary, primitive reflexes and the ones we actually keep for our whole lives. You know, things like blinking when a light is too bright, or coughing or sneezing. Those are also automatic and protective, but they're here to stay. The primitive reflexes we've been talking about, they're just part of the starter pack. Which, of course, leads to the big question, where did this amazing starter pack even come from? Well, as this quote suggests, the answer seems to lie deep in our evolutionary history. The idea is that the grasp reflex, for example, is basically a leftover from a time when our distant primate ancestors' babies had to be able to cling tightly to their mothers to survive as they moved through the trees. And that just leaves us with this one final thought. These reflexes are so much more than just cute baby quirks. They're like little biological fossils, hardwired echoes of our species' long journey. They tell a profound story about where we've all come from, and they map out the incredible pre-programmed journey every single human takes, from complete dependence to voluntary control.